Welcome to episode number 3 of the Final How podcast. This week we are joined with Josh Nordsving from the PG tournaments over on Facebook. Josh, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Josh Nordsving from Canton, Minnesota. Been thermal hunting, night vision for the last 5 years, coyotes. Try to put down as many as we possibly can up here in Minnesota. We ain't got the big numbers like some of you guys do, but we do our best. Put on online tournaments with PG tournaments, strictly Facebook, 100% online, and try to have fun with them.
It's awesome. How long you been doing these tournaments on Facebook?
Um, the page has been up for 3-4 years, roughly.
I've been doing your tournaments for a couple years now, and you guys, the way you structure the tournaments is really good, I think. Can you kind of go through the process on how to get involved in your tournaments?
Everybody just signs up on the official post that's on the Facebook page. And then I keep track of what side pots everybody's on that. And then typically we run a 2-night tournament just since some nights don't work for guys and some of it do the next. So then we can kind of get the bigger numbers in there. So everybody that hunts a certain night will be put into a group chat. Everything will be done through there. Your start videos, your coyote submission, and then your final videos, everything's on there. So guys could keep track of other teams throughout the night if they wanted to also. For the coyote submission stuff, we've tried a lot of different things to try to keep it fair across the board, make sure guys aren't cheating, stuff like that. So for the last couple of years, we've kind of stuck to a pretty general coyote submission. It can be done in 30 seconds once guys get pretty proficient on it, but every step in there, assures that guys aren't trying to cheat in coyotes, that they're fresh kills. We do the best we possibly can to keep them short and sweet, but also make sure everything's fair also. So it seems to be working pretty good.
Right. And like I know you'll put out when you join a tournament and you get in those groups. At least I haven't done one yet this year, but in the past, I know you usually put a sample video out there in the group chat, so that way guys can kind
Correct.
of,
Yep.
yeah, that way guys can kind of see what they're doing and watch it, so they're not nervous about screwing it up or anything.
Right. Yep. That's typically, I'll put a big list of your start video, what steps you need to hit in there, your coyote submission with the steps, and then the final video with the steps. And then I got a couple example videos when we've hunted the tournaments as well. So just kind of kept them around. So then at least guys have a general idea of kind of what I'm looking for, try to make it simple for them. So
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. What would you say? I guess kind of I know when before we jumped on here, we were kind of talking about things ramping up and guys starting to get in this tournament. I'd say like when you're really getting into the season, what do you think your average amount of guys you have in one of those tournaments?
when everybody's season's open, like right now, currently Missouri and stuff like that still closed. There's a lot of guys from Missouri. Illinois will open up this weekend, so then a bunch of them guys will jump in. So that November, December, January time frame when everybody's kind of open for season and deer hunting's over, we average 10 to 15 teams per hunt. So it's pretty substantial.
Right. And what's the average buy-in for this tournament?
So it's 1 to 4 man teams. It's $100 buy-in for your team, and then also I typically run about 3 side pots too, which are optional, and those are 20 a piece.
Okay.
So 100 to 160 for a hunt, depending on how you wanted to do it.
Do your side pots. And
Correct.
generally you do like a small dog, a big dog, and then you kind of always have one you kind of mix up a little bit, like first kill and whatever. And
Yep, I try to keep them guessing basically on what the I've been switching up the main pot quite a bit this year. It's hard because this is a nationwide hunt, so it's kind of hard. I can't run most coyotes every single week. Like the Pennsylvania guys, they can't keep up with the West Texas or, so on and so forth for numbers. And then same for the Texas guys can't keep up with the Pennsylvania guys on heaviest coyote, at 40, 45 pounds. So I try to keep it as fair as I can across the board. I've been running a lot of heaviest three, lightest three. Last week we ended up doing most coyotes, but or heaviest male female combo for the main, and then so it just kind of depends on what I'm running for the main for how I do my side pots. Typically, it's always heaviest, lightest, and then first coyote. Switching that up a little bit on the first just for time zone stuff. It'll be first closest to a random time now. So at the end of the tournament, then I'll use random to generate my time, and then whoever's got the closest coyote to that time will win that side pot now. So try to keep them guessing on what it's going to be and keep it fair so everybody can compete in the 50 states that hunt. So
Right. And I guess if anybody's wondering, like part of the process when you kill a coyote and you make your little video, you'll weigh your coyote. And
so actually I got rid of that this year just to
really,
help guys speed up in between sets. So now none of the weighing is done until the very final video at the end of the night now.
okay, well that's my bad. See, I haven't done one yet this year, so
Yep.
I
Yes, it used to be that way that you'd weigh them right fresh after the kill.
right,
Now, I mean, they're gonna lose a couple ounces maybe by the end of the night if you shoot it at 6 o'clock and not weighing in until 6 the next morning if it is a 12-hour hunt. But typically, it's not gonna make that big a difference on the
right,
weight.
okay. And I know that like you have a picture of a scale that you guys kind of prefer everybody use on your Facebook page.
Yep.
Is there? I know. I think that was last year, or maybe it was the year before. We kind of got contested a little bit on weighing coyotes, like how guys were going about the process of like either slitting the back leg and putting it right on, or using a rope to tie onto it. Is there anything with that you guys have changed, or is it still kind of the same process as long as it's the same every time?
Yeah, pretty much as long as it's the same every time, that's just kind of the scale that we recommend. Then everybody's kind of using the same. But for the most part with the scales, as long as it shows zero, when nothing's hanging on it, as long as it shows me zeros, shows me that it's in pounds, and then reads pounds and ounces, that's, really all that matters to me. Now, yes, if you're using a hook that looks like it might be 3 pounds or something like that to hang them on there, then I'll probably have you weigh the hook just so I can see. Yeah, it's kind of always been an issue. Some guys using different hooks and ropes and stuff like that. And then, so I typically have them just throw it on the scale, and 9 times out of 10, it doesn't weigh anything. So it's not making a difference. But if that question comes up, then we'll have them do something just to make sure we're all on the same page with it. So,
Right. Yeah, because I remember when we were doing. I mean, it can be kind of a pain when you're out there and it's 3 o'clock in the morning and it's 10 degrees and you're trying to hold on to this coyote and weigh it. And but you guys do a phenomenal job, I think, of watching everybody and watching the videos. Plus, in that group chat, you're seeing them as as they're coming in, and at the very end of the night, you're seeing like I can see the videos that you're seeing as the guy running the contest. So
right.
it's kind of
Yep, and I think that
self-regulating.
that helps a lot doing everything through a group chat. So then if I happen to miss something and another team catches it, if they're keeping track of the videos coming in, then typically they're pretty good about asking the questions, or typically they'll privately message me and be, okay, so and so looked like it was a little off or something like that. So then I can go back and rewatch them, make sure I didn't miss something.
Awesome. And kind of, I seen you posted something here a while back about time zones. Um, I guess kind of, if you would kind of talk about how that happens, because I know these are nationwide tournaments. So, you could, it may be 7 o'clock. I'm Eastern time zone in Indiana, and it's what, 6 o'clock for you in the central time. Then the mountain time guys
Correct.
are 3 o'clock. I guess what was kind of the issue or what you were posting there the other day about the time zones, the time differences.
Yeah, so in years past we've always done it's typically like especially now since time or we just switched time back. So then tournaments were always typically 6 to midnight and then 6 to 6 central time zone. Well, then that's where the issue arised with either guys hunting mountain time or west coast, that they were an hour or 2 hours behind me. So then, central guys are starting at 6. Well, then mountain guys can't start for another hour. Well, then they were kind of getting, in theory, they were getting gypped out of an hour of hunting. So we switched it this year. So we're running 6 to midnight and 6 to 6 your time zone. So everybody's going to get that 6 hours during the weekday hunts and then the 12 hours during the weekend hunts. Seems to work out pretty good for this year. Um, some guys are kind of right on that line of being where they could be bouncing back and forth in between, let's say, Eastern and Central time zone or Mountain time and Central time, whatever the case may be. So that's kind of had some issues there. If you started in, let's say, Central time and then you finish in Mountain time, well, in theory, you were gaining an hour there. So it's just you strictly get 6 hours during a weekday hunt and 12 hours during a weekend hunt. So you just have to justify on where you're starting, where you're finishing on your timestamps and how your videos are going to work out there. So
Awesome. I've always kind of wondered about that myself. If you're, like right on the line there in India or certain western counties here in Indiana, if you're right there on that state line between Illinois and Indiana, well, I've always wondered, like, are guys jumping across and taking advantage of that or to get that extra hour?
right, right. And that's, it helps out too, because I typically want coyote submission videos within an hour after you kill the coyote. So obviously if a team shoots a or submits one at 8 o'clock and then their next videos now it's all of a sudden it's only 7 o'clock. Well, you know, yes, maybe did one delay and not get sent, but obviously they're going to submit more videos. So then I'm going to see that there was a change in the time zone or something there too. So that is the one of the nice things about having them send the videos to me as soon as I possibly can. So hopefully I was catching that if it did happen.
Right. Well, some of them tournaments I've been, there'll be 20 different teams or 15, a lot of different, man, there's certain parts of the night, it'll just be your phone's going nuts. Guys are hammering them. And it just video,
Right.
video, 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 video. It's sometimes it gets crazy.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to keep up with during the night if I'm trying to keep track of them. Typically, I'll watch them until I go to bed, and then I'll just wake up and worry about it in the morning. So,
Right. Excuse me. I guess maybe let's talk a little bit about um, maybe give a couple different options, a couple different styles of tournaments. Because I know when I talk to people and be like, oh yeah, and they're like, how do you do these tournaments? And I try to explain and the process of getting on and getting signed up for the tournament, and then all the way or paying through them however you want your payment, and then getting paid back, and then if you happen to win a side pot or whatever, could you kind of maybe we'll just go through a step by step on how to sign up for this?
yeah, yep, yeah. So, for the weekday hunts, I typically post them on Monday. The hunts are Wednesday, Thursday. Like I said, they're combined nights, so you can pick which night you're hunting, either Wednesday or Thursday. So yeah, you sign up. Like I said, on the Facebook page, just comment right on that tournament. Which night you're hunting, your team name, your team members, and then what side pots you want, if any. Payments are through Venmo or PayPal, and then typically about 4 o'clock, 4:30 roughly, the day of the tournament, I will add everybody to a group chat on Messenger. I will send the list of video steps along with some sample videos. You can add your other team members, of course, to the group chat if you'd want. And then at 5 p.m. Central Time, I do a video call on the group chat. For the rules meeting, I'll go over any questions that anybody has, go over the steps that need to be taken, and then I will give the catchphrase for the night in that video call. And then I also, once the video is called done, I'll post that um, catchphrase in the group chat so everybody's got it. Right after the rules meeting, guys can do their start videos. So it's basically just team name, showing all team members, the catchphrase, show me what time zone you're in via Google on your smartwatch, tablet, partner's phone, whatever the case may be, and then empty truck bed rack or whatever, just so I can make sure that there's no coyotes already killed. Um, then as soon as 6 o'clock your time starts, you can start calling. You can be in the field prior. If you're already out set up at 5:45, that's perfectly fine. You just can't start calling until 6 p.m. your time. Coyote submission videos, I like to get them within an hour. So as soon as you get back to the truck, if you happen to get one, take another video again. Once again, it's team name, team members, time and date on a partner's phone, smartwatch, whatever. Show eye shine on the coyote, that use the flash kit, flash on your phone for the eye shine, floppy jaw, shake test, gender, and vent, and then submit that in. And then for the final videos, it's pretty much the same exact steps again: team name, team member, timestamp, coyotes laid out in a line, and then depending on what it is, either weighing heavy 3, lightest 3, heaviest, smallest, whatever the case may be. So pretty simple.
Yes, it is. That's what I liked about your guys' tournaments is it's pretty simple process. Once you do it, and then the next, it's super easy getting signed. Like it's a pretty dang easy process. It really is.
Right. Right. I think that's, yeah, with the videos, it just kind of overwhelms some guys that a lot seems like a lot of steps. But once you do a couple of them, or, watch the example video, like I said, I mean, typically when we're doing them now, granted, yes, we put the steps together and we've hunted quite a few ourselves. Like I said, typically them coyote submission videos can be done in 20, 30 seconds max. You're not wasting a whole lot of time. Yeah, they're pretty simple, but pretty effective at the same time. So,
Right. All right. Let's talk about coyote hunting in Minnesota.
okay.
that's
Yeah.
that's I guess kind of interests me. I've never really done much thermal hunting outside of Indiana, and our terrain, we're a lot of big ag, rolling hills, but bunch of little woodlots and fence rows and fingers. Those coyotes seem to, you know, they can sneak up around you and blow you out, and you don't even know they're there. Like,
Right. Right.
what kind of, I guess, what what do you guys deal with up there?
It's pretty much about the same thing. We got a lot of ag around here. There's a lot of big timber, um, right around close to me, rolling hills. And then it's kind of a mix too. I can drive 10, 15 minutes west and it is flatter than flat. Yes, there's still some pockets of trees and timber blocks and stuff like that, but it gets pretty flat. So I kind of got a mix of about everything within a half hour roughly from my house. So kind of makes things interesting jumping around different types of terrain. But
Right, using a lot of different styles and like,
right.
are you a crosswind guy or wind in your face when you set up? Like, how do you use wind? Like, what's your thought process going into a stand?
So typically I like to set up for a crosswind. I like wind at my back, and then I will set my call to get the crosswind that I want. Took me a long time to get my brain wrapped around that. I was a big deer hunter, so I always wanted wind in my face. But once I switched and basically kind of set up my call and where I was at to where I want them coyotes to be, it seemed to really up the numbers on the coyotes. Wind in your face, they're always going to circle around you, and you're always going to have to spin around to make sure you're getting that coyote. So to me, it just kind of finally clicked. It's like, why don't I just face the way that I know they're gonna want to circle around? So, and it seems to be working.
Right. I know that was one of my biggest aha moments of, coyote hunting at night was, like kind of like you were saying, I'm a born and raised deer hunter myself. And, you just think that, oh, I got to have the wind in my face and this and this. And it's, coming to that realization, they're not coming to me. It's not like the old hand call days when you would be calling them, mouth calling them or whatever. And it's like they're coming to that e-collar. I can put this thing wherever I want, and I can make a crosswind if I don't have one. Like they're coming to that call.
Right.
Well, it takes a minute to get your head
Exactly.
wrapped around that process of making the wind in your favor.
Right. Exactly. Yep. And then just making sure you're tagging them out before they get around you, basically. So
Right. Do you set up in a lot of? You try to set up in fence rows, or do you just make a stand? Like in the dark of the moon in front of the truck, or stand in the open field?
so yeah, so it kind of depends on where I'm at and where I know the coyotes are. Typically I don't get very far off the road, off the field drive, uh, 50 to 100 yards away from the truck. Kind of depends on if it's a pitch black night. I see no issue with standing right out in the middle of a wide open field. If there is a little bit of moonlight, then I do try to tuck into a fence line if possible, or at least have something behind me, hillside trees, for a little bit of that backdrop, just so they're not seeing me. So it kind of depends on, like I said, where the coyotes are, or where I think they are, and how I'm setting up on that field is how I'm going to set up. But
Right. What do you get in? I know certain times of year it kind of varies, doubles, triples, whatever. But if you had to guess, if you're making a stand, like I know for me personally, I very seldom do I call in too many, you know, quads or 4 or 5. Very seldom does that ever happen for me. Or do you see a lot of just singles and doubles where you're from up there? Or,
yeah, it depends on the type, or, time of year, of course. Within the last couple weeks around here, I've been calling in a lot of triples, a lot of quads. Of course, that's going to change here within the next couple weeks. Where yeah, it'll mainly kind of just go back to them singles, maybe doubles. For the most part, though, November, December, January, it's up here typically for me, it's them singles with the doubles. I don't really get a lot of triples or quads coming in like I do early season. But yeah, a lot of singles, a lot of doubles.
well, I just, you know, I have some, buddies of mine that get asked and they'll show me these videos and they're like, man, look at this guy's got 6, 7, 8 coyotes coming in. And I'm like, well, sometimes you need to click on and see where these guys are at. Like, some,
Right.
some of them boys out there in West Texas and Mexico and New Mexico, like, I know there was a gentleman that was kind of in the tournaments there for a little bit. And man, that dude was knocking 20 some plus coyotes down by himself
Yep.
a night. Like, and he's from West Texas. Like, that's it's a whole different ball game when you're out there. It seems like.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah, the most I've ever called in on one stand around here was six, and that was actually late January.
Really?
So that one really surprised me. That was a cattle pasture that had actually never been coyote called ever. And I had six come in and we ended up with four out of the six. But that was by far the most I've ever had come in. That's never happened before. So
Kudos to you guys for getting 4 of them. Sometimes you get big numbers like that coming in, man. That really gets in everybody's head. Like, what do you do? What do you do?
right, right. Yeah, no, that one worked out pretty good. They just a couple of them went down and then they circled around and come right back. So and I definitely 100% that was just since it's never been called. They didn't know what was going on. You know, you're not going to get that on a pressured chunk of land for sure. But
Are you starting to see, more more guys getting involved in your area? You starting to see more night, thermal hunters out at night?
Yes, 100%. I mean, within the last couple years, there's been a lot of guys that have got into it within my area. I mean, there's certain areas that I used to do very, very well at. And then the last couple years, I haven't been able to kill a coyote in that area. So, I kind of branch a little farther out, get a little farther away from home where I just know guys aren't traveling or there isn't a big number of thermal hunters yet, so I can try to keep my numbers up. But yeah, it's definitely growing in the last couple of years for sure, no doubt about it.
Are you changing your sounds any much when you're kind of in a more of a pressured area? Do you think, or you just still kind of roll with the same style of sounds that work for you?
I switch sounds quite a bit. I run a lot of aftermarket sounds. I do run a Fox Pro X24, but I have a lot of MFK, a lot of Tony Teebs. I've been dabbling in some Busted Fur stuff this year. So I try to switch it up as much as I can. Just me knowing that um, guys out coyote hunting are probably just running factory Lucky Duck sounds or Fox Pro sounds. So I try to mix it up and run a lot of them aftermarket stuff, changing my sequence up as much as I possibly can. And it has seemed to be working. Um, Now, not saying that other guys aren't running aftermarket sounds. MFK has got really big. They're awesome sounds. So everybody watches the podcast and buys sounds. So I try to mix it up as much as I can, to try to keep some areas fresh. But
Are you kind of running more of a more vocals than like a rabbit distress? I know me personally. I mean, I'm a rabbit distress guy. Like I'll kind of open up a stand with just the call down low of just a rabbit, just in case something's pretty close before I howl. But I really don't get into too many vocals. Like I don't really beat myself up because it's kind of certain times you can tell what that coyote's saying or what he's looking for. You know, so that's kind of, I guess in my head, I see a lot of debate out there between distress guys and vocal guys, and I'm just kind of getting a feel, I guess, more people I talk to, what they're running, what's working for them, what they're seeing.
yeah, so uh I'm typically distress heavy for the most part. When I started here a little over a month ago, typically I don't start hunting hard till October 1st. My typical distress just wasn't working for me. So I went into being vocal heavy, and for the first 2.5 weeks in October, that was really working for me, being just strictly vocals. I would throw in just a little bit of rabbit, maybe halfway through my set, and then some fights, stuff like that. And it was really paying off for me. Now, within the last week again, it hasn't been working. So now I've been going back to stress heavy, and that's been working for me. So it kind of depends on the time of the year. During breeding season, I'm really vocal heavy. Um, I'll throw in a little bit of distress there, but kind of exactly what you just said. It kind of depends on where I'm at. If I know them coyotes are within a couple hundred yards from me in a tree line or whatever the case may be, I'll throw on a rabbit just to start low volume for a few minutes, just in case there is one that I can't quite see, and just see if it pops up before I go into them vocals. I've 100% I've blown coyotes right out of the area by opening up with a loud howl, and they just take off running right across the field. So yeah, kind of depends on how I'm set up. If it's a big chunk of field ground and I know they got to come a long ways, then I might open up with a howl right off the get go, just to try to get them to howl back at me, so I know that they're there or where they're at, so I kind of have an idea of where they're coming from.
Right. There's a friend of mine, a guy I met a year ago that just really kind of was starting getting into it, and he asked me to go with him a couple times, and I went out with him. And the first time I went with him, I was kind of just having him do the calling. I'm not here to tell anybody what to do, and it really wasn't calling much. And then he wanted me to start calling, and then he's like, "Well, why are you doing this different on this stand and this?" And I really, it was kind of hard for me to explain to him, like, well, I think I've just screwed up enough. I've learned I how to do this, and that's kind of part of the reason why I was starting this podcast was to maybe figure that out, to get more guys' opinions, to find out what are we looking at, what makes you feel when you go to make a stand. Like, nah, I'm gonna start off with a light distress here. Nah, I'm kind of in the, I feel that they're in the mood for let's start howling at them and see if that works.
Right.
You kind of
Yep.
see what I'm saying. Like, it was hard for me to explain to him why I was doing what I was doing, and by any
Right.
means, I'm not saying I know what I'm doing because there's plenty of times I've went and called all night and been lucky to even hear one, let alone see one.
Right. Exactly. That seems like, I mean, the biggest part of coyote hunting, it seems like you get that sequence figured out one night and they're coming to it really hard. And then you can go out a week later and not see anything with the same sequence. So I think that's one of the biggest things that discourage guys is you just get to that point where you think you're getting it figured out and then all of a sudden it quit working. So that's where you need to get that mindset like, oh, let's try it this way and change stuff up. I mean, me typically, I'm not going to go to the same exact spot 3, 4 times in a row and play the same exact sequence. Typically I'm switching it up pretty often, throwing some new sounds in there. I mean, easiest way not to educate a coyote is to shoot that coyote, but at the same time, if there was a couple that didn't come in, they've already heard the song and dance basically. So try something different and see if it's working. Um,
How long are your stands typically?
Typically 15 to 20 minutes. That's all the longer I'm on there. Unless I see something coming at that 15, 20 minute mark, then I might stretch them out to that 25, 30 minute mark. But typically for me, it's 15, 20 minutes and I'm on to the next one. I guess that's just kind of the tournament
Right.
style hunting, I try to make as many stands as I possibly can. I know guys that have great success sitting there for a half hour. To me, I guess personally, it's if I sit there for a half hour, I could have already been at the next set and been calling that for 5 to 10 minutes. So it kind of depends on what I'm doing. But if I'm not tournament hunting, I mean, yeah, I'll stretch them out just a little bit, but typically it doesn't get past that half hour mark.
Right. That's I know that's how I kind of in my head mentally going. If I'm hunting a tournament and man, it's 10, 15 minutes, and if I'm hearing nothing, seeing nothing, it's packed up, it's on to the next. It's kind
Right.
of trying to get as much then, heck if I'm in an area and I've made 3 stands and I'm not seeing anything, I'll pack up and go 10 miles. I'll leave that area. Like and then
Right.
maybe come back to it. Do you do kind of a similar
Yep.
thing or
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah, I like to bounce around a lot. That's like I said, it's kind of rolly hills here, a lot of timber, and my sections are pretty big. So, if I make 2, 3 stands kind of right in the same general area within a few sections of each other and just nothing's working there. Like I said, yeah, typically I'll go a little bit farther out west then, and hit some of that flat ground and see if they're working over there. Been a lot of times too where you start tournament hunting and just nothing's going your way, and then midnight 1 o'clock rolls around, and then all of a sudden it's like a light switch, and there's coyotes all over you on every stand. So it's it's kind of weird, but you got to keep trying too.
the how far typically do you if you're in an area if you're making a stand say at location A, how far will you go to make the next stand? Will you kind of maybe stay on the same like because like here in Indiana we basically are cut up in 1 mile blocks.
Yep, correct.
Will you go like maybe just a mile down or maybe 400 yards down? Like what kind of, for a general reference, I mean, I understand everything's a little different, what comes into play, but generally, how far will you put between stands?
Uh Kind of my rule of thumb is about a mile. It kind of depends too. I've kind of got a lot of my sections figured out on boundary lines for coyotes and stuff like that. So, I mean, I've had a lot of times where I can call coyotes and see them coming from 1,000, 1,500 yards away, and then they get to a fence line and just hang up. So, I know that's a boundary line, and typically I just drive around to the other side of it and then call them back the other way. So it kind of depends on the section. I've had a lot of spots too where, I mean, it's the same chunk of ground, and I can call coyotes in on the south side of it, and I drove around to the north side of it, called coyotes in there, and then we drove over to the west side of it and called coyotes in there, and it was all within a mile of every stand. So it kind of really just depends on where I'm at, but a good rule of thumb is typically I'd like to go about a mile away from my previous stand before I make my next one for the most part.
And when you're saying boundary lines, are you saying like as far as that coyote just doesn't want to go any farther than that because it's another one's area, you think, or what kind of do you
Correct.
mean on
Yep. I got one spot and we've watched them consistently. For the last 3 years, they always come out of the same chunk of woods, which I know there's coyotes on my side of it. It just kind of depends on, but for 3 years now, pretty much every time I call that section, I can watch them come out of the chunk of woods. They'll come across the big field and they hit that fence line and just stop. They will not come across that fence line. And then I've done it the same way too. Like I said, I drive around to the other side of it, call them that way, and then I can watch the coyotes from the other side of the section, same exact thing. They'll come up to that fence line, stop, sit down. They won't come any farther. And that fence line from where we sit up on both sides of it is 750 yards. They just, that's it right there. They will not come through that fence from either the east side or the west side of that.
do you feel that like depending on the time of year or like because they're more territorial, say in December versus trying to call that in 1st of October, or is it just that's
That
the line?
that particular spot, it doesn't matter on the time of year that I call it. I can call it October 1st or I could call it February 1st, and it's the exact same thing every single time on that spot. It's
That's interesting.
it's really fun to watch, and then it's really frustrating at the same exact time.
Right, I can see that. That's real interesting. I've never really, I guess, I've I've run across some coyotes that I've noticed won't come, but then if you go around, then you do get it. You can call it in to you if you're on the back side of it, and you get it killed. I've never really seen that since. But even though you're killing those same coyotes, and then the new ones come in, they're still kind of with that line.
Right. Yep, that's what I've seen a lot, especially in that spot a lot in the last 3 years. I don't know what it is about that fence line, but they don't like it.
That's interesting. That's pretty cool to know. I mean, that's a pretty good tip for somebody when they're seeing that. Like, don't be afraid to if you're seeing that, make a move on the backside like you're doing. Like
Right. Exactly. Yep.
that's super interesting. Um, what what caliber are you kind of more partial to? Do you have, that you run? I guess.
So I run a 22 250. It's extremely hard for me to get away from that caliber. It's what I
Right.
started with way back in the day. It's what I'm used to. It's fast and flat. That's it's my go-to. It's gonna be really hard for me to ever switch to anything else.
Right. I ran a 250. That was my daytime gun. I run a 250 for years. And then when we started switching to night, running thermal, well, I was starting to get a lot of runners. Like I'd hit them and they'd be gone. And I'm like, what the hell? I've never had this problem with my daytime gun. Either I missed
Mhm.
them or they died. So I didn't know if maybe you can kind of tell me if you've noticed this, but through a thermal scope, do you feel that there's like as precise as a daytime scope, like a normal scope? Like if you notice you put that gun in the cabinet and get it out 2 months later, it's not dead on. Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah, I shoot mine a lot. I mean, typically once a month. if I mean that's stretching it out quite a bit, but typically once a month I'm double checking 100%. I mean, it's more like every 2, 3 weeks I'm just double checking zero, just to make sure that there is no changes. So I could see it definitely 100%, but um, that's I like to make sure I'm on all the time. So I shoot quite a bit while I'm not hunting as well. So
Right. I know we kind of got Bill and I kind of got into the habit now of, especially tournaments. Like if it's, we're hunting Saturday night or Wednesday night, whatever the night be, it starts at 6. You know, we're out here shooting our guns at 4 o'clock. Just to, like every time I'm shooting it before a tournament just to make sure. Cause, and there's been times we've been out and either one of us, say me for an example, it's like I've missed 3 coyotes, and it's like, what the frick is going on? Well, get frustrated, get in your pack, you grab a hot hand, set it up out there at 100 yards, and I'm shooting three, 5 inches high now, and it's like, what the hell?
right.
This thing just, the night before was dead on. Like what's going on here? And I just kind of curious if anybody else has ever really noticed that or had that problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had, it's definitely happened to us too. And one of the biggest things is you could bump it on the truck door or something when you're pulling it out or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I mean, we've definitely had those nights too where we didn't double check before tournaments and we're shooting high or we're missing. And then just like you said, you set a cardboard box out with a hot hand and you're 4 inches right at 100 or something like that. Well, yeah, we should have double checked for sure. But so yeah, we're pretty consistent on making sure we're shooting before a tournament, making sure our guns are on, etc. So
Yeah, because the scope tech, which I mean, my scope's 2 years old now, but it seems like the technology now. Some of these videos I'm seeing these guys post, some of these scopes are unreal. Like
yes,
I'm seeing
the scope.
384, scopes that are putting out better video quality than my 640 that's 2 years old. It's insane.
Hmm. Yeah, scopes have definitely come a long ways in the last 2 years. No doubt about that. Like you said, some of them 384s are really, really impressive now. I mean, they're better than, like you said, some 640 scopes that have been on the market for a little while. It's gotten crazy on the technology and the sensors, and everybody's changing stuff up constantly. I mean, it seems like iRay is coming out with something new about every 2 months. So, but
They
yeah.
seem to be a pretty good. I've run Pulse, which 2 years ago, I mean, Pulsar was kind of the better end, but now I've seen a lot of these different brands come out. Like I'm just curious on what you kind of think now, like in today's day, what you kind of think's maybe one to look at or what's
Yeah, so I still run an Envision Halo XRF. It's going to be really hard for me to get away from that scope. I'm just used to it. I've been running that scope for 2 years now. I I really like it. It does good in the humidity up here. I have ran others. I've ran Pulsar, XPs. I ran the XG. I ran the XL. Towards the end of last year, I've ran Ricks. I mean, they're all really good sculpts, just going to be kind of more on your style of hunting and what you're looking for out of a scope. Like I said, there's a lot of great scopes on the market right now. iRay is phenomenal with their image quality right now. But then Pulsar and everybody else is right there too. So it kind of depends on really what you're looking for in your hunting style.
right. I know the Envisions. I looked at that hard when before I bought my Pulsar. Like, well, I really like that Envision. I'm kind of jealous of you a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a couple things that I wish it had, of course, but I mean, overall, it's works for me. So I'm gonna run it until I can't
Right.
resist something any longer.
That's kind of how I am about my pole. I run an XG, and I'm kind of the same way. Which now you look at the price of those, it's like shit. If I would have waited 2 years, I would have paid half as much. But
Right. Yes.
but that's kind of another reason. It's like this thing just might die on top of this gun. Like I might be running it in 20 years,
Right.
which it's
Yep.
doing. It does the job. I mean, it records pretty good, and I mean, it's unless it's super heavy fog and just downright crappy, at the image quality works for me. I can still tell it's a coyote at 400 or 500 yards or whatever it be.
Right. Right. Yep.
So, what's one of your most, I guess, memorable coyote hunts you've been out? Rather it be just one good running shot, or you're with a bunch of buddies out. What's kind of your most memorable hunt if you can think of one?
Um, I there's probably two. And they were both right here in Minnesota. I think it was like a week after I ended up getting my XRF and I shot my first coyote at over 500 yards. So it was
Man,
504 yards. Um, I would say that's probably my number one right there. I mean, before that, I mean, 300 yards and we were kind of skeptical on taking the shots. So that night hitting that one at 504 and dumping it right there, that was probably the one that sticks out the most to me. Otherwise, the other one would be last year. I ended up having two coyotes hanging up on a fence line, and I shot both of them 493 and 508.
that's
So I
impressive
would
stuff.
say between them two would be my most memorable hunts, I would say.
Yes, that's impressive. How is it generally just you and one other buddy, or you guys kind of got a group of you that like to go out together? Or
No, typically it's just the two of us. Every now and then, yes, we do hunt with a couple other guys, depending on, but for the most part, it's just two of us that hunt together.
I was just curious because I know I see a lot of in the tournaments and stuff, a lot of 3 4 man teams, and it's basically just been Bill and I. My brother will go with us some, but and it seems like you get more than two people. I kind of starts to be becoming crowded. Like who's going to shoot what now? Well, I was kind of curious.
Yeah.
I was wanting if you hunted with more than that regular, I was just going to see how you guys kind of set up to do that.
Yeah, so typically, like I said, for the most part, it's just me and my hunting partner and that's about it. We might take another guy out every now and then, but for the most part, it's just the two of us. We do get Andy and Aaron from Illinois. They do come up and hunt with us, and it can be a learning curve. The first two stands, their hunting styles, they've been hunting together for a long time. Me and Dustin have been hunting together for a long time, but our hunting styles between the four of us is completely different. So it takes us a little bit to get in sync. What's going on here and there. It can be kind of a cluster the first couple stands, but that's, me and Dustin have been hunting together for quite a while now. And I mean, it's one of them things where if I shuffle my feet or he hears me move, he knows I'm getting on my gun, and it's vice versa. And we know exactly what the other one's doing. It's weird. You've been hunting with the same person for quite some time and how in sync you guys get. It's just like on our countdown on doubles, 3, 2, 1, we don't even know if the other one shoots or not 95% of the time because we're squeezing at the exact same time. We're just, you, you get so in sync with your same hunting partner every time. So when you're hunting with other guys or taking new guys out, there's that learning curve there. Or somebody shuffling their feet all constantly spinning around scanning, then you think they're on their gun. And but so it's nice to have a good partner you're in sync with.
Oh, I agree with that. That's how Bill and I are that way, and it works kind of perfect because Bill's a lefty. So when we set up, he's always on my right,
Mhm.
and that way his swing is always from 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock or whatever. Then mine's to the left everywhere else. And it's amazing when you fine tune everything hunting with the same guy, making all them mistakes, and then all of a sudden one day you go out and it's just so simple. Like
Hmm.
it's amazing. Then when you go out with somebody different, it's like, oh crap. I'm like, okay, well, you're anticipating who you normally hunt with, what moves they're making, and or running the call. Do you, one of you generally always run the call, or do you just kind of mix it up between the both of you?
Kind of depends for the most part. I do most of the calling. Now if we're starting to get in, like Dustin's style of calling's actually quite a bit different than mine. So, if it's one of them things where we've been kind of hammering the same spot over and over and over, and I've been calling, but we know there's still coyotes in there, then typically he'll call. We kind of, it depends on, we might every other time at that spot, I might call it the one time, and then the next spot, then he'll call it, just since our calling styles are way different, just to kind of keep things up. Even though we both run X24s, it's just he's running different sounds, different volumes than what I typically like to run. He's really quiet on the call. I'm really loud on the call. So kind of depends, the situation and how we're hunting. But for the most part, I call for the most part.
That's neat because I think that's generally how like Bill and I will run. Like he's kind of the same way. He's more quiet, basically just runs a rabbit distress and just a more simplified, I would call it calling, to where I'll kind of get. I'm not afraid to get rowdy with them. Like I'll always generally start off quiet and slow for that first 2 or 3 minutes in case something's laying 100 yards from us. You don't
Yep.
blow its eardrums out, but yeah, I'm not afraid to start howling at them and talking back and forth and getting loud with them. So that's neat.
Right.
That's kind of neat. That's kind of the same styles.
Yep. Yeah, I'm not scared one bit to back to back to back to back to back on sounds. I don't pause in between sounds. I mean, I'm firing one right after another. And like I said, Dustin, he'll pause for a minute or two in between sounds, or he'll taper the volume off a little bit before he switches. And to me, I'm pretty aggressive with it. So,
Right,
but they both work. So
right. And that's all that's important. I mean, as long as you're hammering, I mean, who cares, right?
right.
You're
Yep.
stacking them in the truck.
Yep.
Oh man. Uh, I guess whatever. Is there anything else you'd like, kind of maybe to go over or talk about? I mean, it's open for whatever.
The big points tournament. So
So, are the current teams you have in it now? Are they pretty diverse across the country, or are they kind of located generally in the same type of area?
no, I got a team from Montana, there's a team from Mississippi, there's a team in Alabama. Um, there's a couple other ones too. I can't remember. Illinois or Ohio, there's a team from Ohio. So they're kind of spread out for the most part all over.
So then it's working pretty good for them as far as the way you're structuring it. Not always just going off of numbers, like, or just like heaviest weight or just small. It's like it's working out pretty good to stay competitive with teams spread out all over. Then
Right. Yep. Yep. And that's kind of, yeah, like I said, for the most part, every week I'm switching something up, so I try to make it where I'm not favoring one part of the country over the other. So I try to keep it where everybody, no matter where you're at, if you're in whatever, Florida or North Dakota or Texas, whatever, I mean, everybody's got a chance on it for the most part. So, um, yeah, try to keep switching them up. But
yeah, because I know just over the years watching the like I know that's a pain in the ass for you guys to try to structure something to where it's fair, for everybody. Because I mean, when you're doing most coyotes, well, and you see somebody jump in there from Out west, it's kind of like, ah, crap. But, there's been times we've been in it and, got in the top three, and the guys out west never killed it, or, they weren't even in the top three. I mean, you just never
Right.
know. But generally,
Yep.
they are. But they sure can't
Mhm.
hang when we're putting 38-pound, 40, 41, 42-pound dogs up on the scale. Their heaviest dogs, like, what, 30? Generally,
Right. Yep.
28, 29.
Yep. We've seen that like the last couple years. I mean, I switched up mains and stuff quite a bit last year. But before that, I mean, pretty consistently we were just running like most coyotes, heaviest coyote, smallest coyote. Those were kind of the three top main pots that we ran. Well, then we started catching on that, you know, certain teams would only hunt the heaviest coyote when it was the main pot, just because I mean, them teams had, I mean, consistent 40, 45 pound dogs. Well, I mean, them guys out in Montana or Oregon, I mean, we can't compete with them. I mean, even here in Minnesota, I can't compete with a 40, 45 pound coyote. Um, and then same thing, we'd run most coyotes, and then all of a sudden we were catching on that there's a couple teams from West Texas. Well, they would just wait for them tournaments to come, and then they were only hunting them once. Which, I get it. If I know I can compete and be very competitive in them main pots on just them, of course I'm going to hold out and only hunt once, maybe twice a month. So that's why we switched it up quite a bit, kind of doing some of that oddball three coyote stringer stuff like that, kind of switching it up. So no matter kind of where you're at, I mean, you got a pretty good shot, or heaviest two or something like that, or lightest two. So the one I like the most is like the biggest and smallest spread. So you shoot two coyotes, and then whoever's got the smallest spread or the biggest spread between the two, then you're kind of competing against yourself there in not different states. If you're consistently shooting 40, 45 pound dogs, well, you're only going to have a 5 pound spread there. But if, for instance, Minnesota, I mean, I can go out and I can shoot a 24 pound, but then I might also shoot a 34 pound, so it kind of just depends there. Kind of just, you're hunting against yourself then for the most part. But, and then in theory, it only takes two coyotes. So,
Right. And I'm glad you brought that one up, because that's probably one of my favorite styles, is that biggest spread or smallest spread, because to me that kind of really makes it really fair across the board, because I mean, you can't really tell in the thermal how big that coyote is.
right.
I mean, you kind of can. I mean, but there's been plenty of times I've had one come in and look at it through the thermal and be like, "Oh, that's a pup. That's a pup." And then you shoot it and you go out there and it's a 37-pound dog. It's like, "Oh crap, okay, that one fooled me."
Yep.
But yeah, that really
I've
seems to
got,
make it real fair.
right. Yep. And I really like running them. That's kind of, those are kind of fun. I like, but of course, I've had teams too that they've shot two and they've been within, I mean, a couple ounces of each other. Well, that doesn't happen very often, but it can very well could. So it's kind of fun. Typically, it's within a few pounds. Everybody's within a few pounds of each other there. So it's, and that's hunting all over the United States, different teams. So, if you can keep it within 1 to 3 pounds all across the United States by doing a tournament like that, I mean, I don't think it gets much more even across the board than that.
Right. And I guess to kind of clarify, because I know at first it was took me a minute to figure it out, but you can still kill 12 coyotes, and you're just going to look at the scales of all 12, and you're going to find the two that are the closest together, correct?
Yes, correct.
Or
Yep.
the
So if you
two
go out
that's
and
the farthest apart.
yep, correct. Yeah. So let's, if we're using biggest spread, for instance, and if you shoot 12 coyotes, all you need to do is weigh your heaviest one and your littlest one in the video. That's it. So then I'll take the weight differences and I'll figure out what the difference is between the two for every team. And then whoever's got the biggest wins. So, and then same thing with basically smallest spread. You could, it doesn't have to be your two lightest ones. It could be your, let's say you shoot 12 coyotes and your fifth and sixth coyote that you shot are the closest together in weight, let's say 35 pounds and 36 pounds, let's say. So then your spread is 1 pound then. So you can use any of them for your lightest or smallest spread.
Right. Yeah, that's a pretty good structure because
Mhm.
it even seems like the guys out west, you know, they'll still have freak. I mean, I think I've seen some of them smallest dogs out there, like what, 17 pounds, 18
Yeah.
pounds,
Yep.
and then they're still pretty consistently kill 28 pounders. So it kind of seems like like on the biggest spread, anyways. That's 10 pounds to get it like a 10 pound spread's kind of manageable across the country.
Right. Yep. And then of course, it's going to get change a little bit throughout the season. Of course, November, December, now your pups aren't that low 20s anymore. They're mid 20s. Well, now your big coyotes are, low 30s, depending on your area. So it's kind of keeps it, like I said, as fair across the board for everybody. Everybody's states are pretty much having the pups right around the same time, so then depending on what month it is, then they're so old by that time too. So
Right. What would you say is probably your average, like on the biggest and lowest end? What's your kind of what you see as your average weights? As many as I mean, you see
um
you see a lot of coyotes, so that's why I'm asking.
yeah. Yeah, so it depends. I got a team from New York. I mean they're consistently mid to high 40s on coyotes. That's that's just what he shoots. I mean 40-pound coyotes. I don't think I've ever really even seen him shoot anything smaller than that. Um but then of course I got a couple teams from Oregon, Washington, and their big coyotes are low to mid 20s, and that's a big coyote for them. So it's weird watching teams from all over the United States on just like how much it really does vary. Like in the Midwest here, I mean, that low to mid 30s kind of seems to be the average size coyote. So it's just weird how it changes once you get out on like the East Coast, how big they can get. And then, of course, you get way, way out on the West Coast and how small they actually are. I mean, full grown. Um, but then like Montana too. Montana's got depends on the area for that team. I watch them and they shoot low to mid 20s, but then they're shooting high to mid 30s too. And I've talked to them and it's just kind of on the area where they're hunting. If they're hunting up in the mountains or if they're hunting down on the flats, it's kind of weird and fun to watch at the same time, just how drastic some places can change.
Right. Yeah, that's something I find super interesting. Like, it's just seeing other. I mean, across this country, it's just amazing how it changes.
Mhm.
Just heck, from even a state away or two states away, it's like a complete different way. Or the coyotes are just huge or really small and they're plentiful. It's just you see a lot of them. So that's.
Right.
I mean, on an average, each tournament. I mean, what do you see? I mean, if there's 5 teams in a tournament, you're probably seeing 20, 15 to 20 different coyotes.
Yeah, if not more. Kind of just depending on, but yeah, I mean there's a lot. I definitely have seen a lot of dead coyotes, no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, over the course of the last, 4 or 5 years, you guys been doing this. Like
Mhm.
you've seen a lot of them. That's something. It really is, and
Right.
I think it's a pretty cool deal. The tournaments, and because if you're out anyways, what's it? Even if you're just getting in the main pot, it's $100. That's $50 a person.
Right.
Well, I mean, I don't know what everybody's habits are, but if it's a Saturday night and you're going coyote hunting, well, if you were going to go to the bar or out to dinner or something, you're spending $50.
Right.
So,
Yep.
and if you're already out doing it, I mean, heck, why not? You know, you and another guy get in it, $50 a piece, just to get in a main pot and try it, because you never know. I mean, you keep your
Right.
eye out on the Facebook page, and you're real good at, you know, when you post it, tagging everybody in it. That's a part of the group, so you can see it. And then just like, oh, hey, man, he's doing the biggest spread or the heaviest coyote or smallest or whatever the main is.
Yep.
I mean, you don't have to be in every one. You can see one. It's like, oh, hey, I really think for my area, I can be competitive in this. Why not?
Right.
I mean,
Yep.
you got a chance to put an extra 400 or 500 bucks or whatever in your pocket. Why not?
Right. Yeah, exactly like you said too. I mean, if you're already, I mean, for me, typically, like on a weekday, I'm hunting till midnight, so that's if I hunt till midnight, then I can go home and still get up and go to work in the morning. So, it's one of the things it's like, well, yeah, for $100, why don't I try it? So, that's the weekend ones. That's going to take a little bit more dedicated guys. That is a 12-hour hunt, but depending on what it is, I mean, you might only have to go out and shoot two and then you can go to bed. So, kind of just,
Right. Yeah. You don't, I
kind of,
mean, you can quit the hunt whenever. I mean, because all you got to do is just put a, you know, whenever you go out and say you're hunting the biggest spread, and who knows, you might kill a double right off the rip, you know, a big male and a little female, and have a, you know, 8, 10 pound spread, and might be like, you know what, you've made make two or three other stands, you're not seeing anything. Well, then you just go back home, make your video, and end your
mhm,
night. Correct.
right. Yep. Yeah, and I've had several teams do that too. They go out and shoot, a couple singles or maybe a double and a single or whatever the case may be. And then, of course, they make 5, 6 dry stands and it's 10, 11 o'clock. And they literally just send me their final video and, hey, we're calling it quits. And I've had teams do that and I've had them win. So it's one of them things that just, it's up to you on how much you want to hunt. You don't have to put up 20 coyotes if it's a spread tournament. Or in theory, you only need two. So,
Right. And if somebody leaves the, I mean, if you have a partner that's in with you, and you're still raring to go, and he wants to leave and go home, well, then you just have to make an exit video for him, correct? And then you can stay and
correct.
hunt.
Yep, and I have a lot of teams do that. That they'll start out with 3 to 4 guys, and then I mean, I just had it last week. A guy got sick or whatever, so then yeah, just do an exit video. Hey, so and so's leaving. I'm going home. 3 of us are going to hunt together. So I've had guys too where they're sign up 3 guys and one guy can't join them till 10 o'clock or something, so that the two start, and then they just need to do another end or start video basically when that guy joins the team, basically, and then typically I'll ask for total number of coyotes, something like that, just so I can, make sure that that one guy wasn't out hunting by himself, and then all of a sudden you shoot 6 coyotes in the next hour. Well, so there you can do it. Yeah, I'm just typically going to ask a few questions. So,
Right, because you're not allowed to split apart.
correct. Yep, yep. If you sign up three, all 3 of you have to hunt together unless you got a guy that's gonna come a little bit later, an hour or two later, whatever the case may be, or if you got a guy that, yeah, says he's done, sick, whatever, then he can leave and you guys can continue to hunt. But yeah, once you're together, you have to hunt together.
Right, because then once you make a kill and you make the video, you're showing everybody that's on your team in the video.
Correct. Yep.
You know, and that's the point of the eye shine and the flop and the jaw flop and all that. So that way, if you know somebody, it tries to help prevent those guys that want to try to cheat the system that may split up. Well, if he's a half hour away, by the time you tear down, get to him, and then try to make a video, well, you're probably not going to get the eye shine or the fly. You know, it's gonna rigor mortis going to start setting in to where.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and typically, yeah, that glare in the eye starts to go away within roughly about that half hour. But even before that, jaw's starting to get stiff. So with them two combined right there, it's pretty obviously or obvious that it's a fresh kill. So and I'm very picky about the videos too. I get it if you send me 8 videos and you missed one step in one of the videos, typically I'll let it fly. But if you're consistently missing a step, if a step's missed, that coyote's going to get DQ'd. It just, I try to make the steps as simple as they can, but typically it's not a question if it's a fresh kill or not. It's just you missed a step. So, doing it once is okay, but in every video, then you
Right.
have to make it fair for everybody. So, you start letting too much stuff go, and then all of a sudden it's going to cause an issue. So,
Right, because we don't want this to end up like a fishing tournament and then people start shoving
right,
weights in
exactly.
your ass.
Right.
Because I know one of the tournaments Bill and I won. I think there was only wasn't there like I don't know if you remember that, but there's only like a 4 or 6 ounce difference between us and second place. I think
Yep.
it
Right.
was yeah, because it was most dogs, and then I think we both tied with 6 dogs, and then you go by total weight. Or at that time, that's the way you were doing the um to find out who was first place.
Yep. Yeah, sometimes it can be very tight. Like I said, I mean, I've had teams literally within like 2 ounces of each other, and that's the call right there. Typically on any ties now, I switched everything again on that, just because sometimes it can get that tight. So yeah, everything's coin flip now. And then team who submits the first coyote closest to the start time, their time, of course, then whoever submits it first, they get heads, and then that's a random coin flip recording that I do on my phone. So seems to be working out pretty good so far doing the whole coin flip thing. And then I do that on all pots. So the main and as well as the side pots for any ties.
Okay, so anytime there's a tie, you're just going whoever checked the first coyote in gets heads, and then you're just flipping a coin, and then
Correct. Yep.
let let nature take over from that point. I guess you can say luck or whatever.
Right. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Because it's if I use, like I said, last year, or the year before, when we did, if there was a tie on most, then it was whoever had the most weight for the tiebreaker. You know, them issues could come up on different scales. Well, they were using a different scale than us, or etc. So, it's a coin flip's a coin flip. I mean, there's no question there. And like I said, I screen record it when I do it on my phone, and I post it right there. So
Because it pays out. It still pay out for second place.
nope, I don't pay second.
You don't? Okay. Just first
Nope.
place.
Yep, just first, and then yeah, points for second and or first and second, or second and third if they're in the points tournament, depending on.
Okay. So the points guys are the ones that are going to get something for being in second or third place.
Yep, just strictly points. They don't get paid out.
Right. And then the payout. So if somebody comes in, they win a tournament, or if they get second place, they're getting nothing. No, my only first place gets the payout.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Maybe I'm sure it's probably always been that way, and I just hadn't paid attention, I guess. Because if I'm not winning, I'm mad. But
Right. Right.
and it always seems like too, like oh, if it's not a tournament night and you go out and you're killing big dogs. You've had the best night of your life. Like around here, man, if you put 8 or 10 coyotes in the truck, you're doing awesome.
Right. Yes.
And then I go get on a tournament, and it's well, we killed one tonight, or well, we
Hmm.
didn't we didn't see a coyote one, but
I hear you there.
it
That's
is what
coyote hunting, though.
it is. It really is. Like you never know what you're gonna get into. Like
Right.
that's why I think generally, when we start getting in and doing them, it's like, you might as well get in it. Like, well, why not? Like, I'm going to drop $50 at the bar, or I'm going to go buy a case of beer and a pack of smokes and sit down where it's $50. So hell, it's healthier for me to go coyote hunting.
Right. Yep. I always say there's worse things that I could be doing.
Exactly. Yeah. Hopefully, I mean, you guys continue to grow this thing because I think it's the way you do it's really good. You have pretty good structure around your tournaments.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, I mean, within the last few years, there's been a lot of trial and error on steps and stuff. And we've tried to, I think we got a really good, consistent video steps and stuff like that now to be really consistent and make it as fast as you can possibly take your videos by hitting some steps, getting on to the next set. And then they're really efficient for us to make sure that nobody is trying to cheat too. I mean, not saying it doesn't happen, but for we're going to be able to tell. I mean, especially we've been doing this for quite some time, so you know,
Right. Have you ever ran across anybody you caught cheating? I mean, you don't have to mention it.
no,
If you don't want to talk about it, I get it. That's fine. I mean, but I was just kind of curious if you've ever had that problem that you've caught somebody and you squashed it right there, or if you've it's always been pretty much haven't caught anything.
no. I mean, for what we've seen, we've never had to. I mean, disqualify a team for cheating. Typically, when we do disqualify something, it's just missed video steps or something like that. Um, yeah, for straight up trying to cheat it, we haven't caught nothing or nothing's been brought up. So for the most part, I mean, it's an honor system. So, I mean, if we do catch you, it's, you just won't be able to hunt again. So it's one of them things.
Right. And I like to think that the community, the coyote hunting community, anyways, it's a pretty good group of guys. I mean, pretty honest.
Right. Correct. Yep.
We're all in this for the same reason. You love it. You got a passion for it, and nobody's trying to make a living off tournaments by any means. It's just a fun way of putting yourself against other places, other guys, and just a fun way of
Mhm.
doing it, I think.
Right. And I think that's one of the biggest things for me why I like hunting online tournaments. It's for one, it's just I want to see how I can stack up to other states, to other teams. It's just I don't shoot I mean, best night for me, I mean, typically that's 6 to 8 is a really good night up here. Well, so I know for a fact I can't compete with like West Texas coyotes and stuff like that. So, you know, it's just I'll typically stay out of them. I mean, just me personally, but for them other oddball ones, the biggest spread, smallest spread, heaviest coyote stuff like that. For me, it's just fun to see how I can stack up compared to other teams across the United States.
Right, and that's the part that I really at first when we first started doing them, it was like, oh man, you start seeing some evidence. Like, no, well, I mean, for the most part, I think, like most coyotes, for the most part, everybody's around about the same. I think that 5, 6, 7 mark.
Yep.
Now, yes, there are some guys and some teams that, boy, they'll rack them up for sure.
Right.
There's
Yep.
there's some names that I'll see. I'll get at a tournament. You'll see their name come across, and it'll be instantly. I'll be like, "You're going to see 10 to 12 coyotes tonight from those
Hmm.
guys, like no doubt."
Yep.
Like or if not more.
But then at the same time, it like at the same time for them, it's coyote hunting. So I mean, yeah, just because they sometimes consistently put up 10, 15, it might be one of them nights too where I mean they shoot three. It's that's coyote hunting. And I've seen it from them teams too that, typically put up some pretty decent numbers and then they go out one night and all they turn in is three.
Right.
It just
It's still
that
coyote
yeah,
hunting at
like I
the
said,
end of the day.
that's coyote hunting. So
Exactly. I mean, and that's what's I see some guys get discouraged in the comments. Well, it's like, well, you don't have to hunt most dogs. You don't have to do it.
right,
You know,
exactly.
that's what's super nice. Like, there's a couple others that I've seen out there where that's basically all they run their tournaments. Most dogs, most dogs, most dogs, most dogs. Well,
Right.
that's probably why they're not getting too many people interested into it because it's fun at first, and then you find somebody out there that, which no offense to them, that's smart move.
Hmm.
You see somebody out there that knows they can put out numbers, and they see these tournaments, and they're like, okay, hey, they're gonna wait. They see most dog, then they see there's 15 guys in there. Boom, they're gonna sign up for it.
Right.
Go out there, knock down 20 some coyotes, and then there you go. Like,
Right.
all the power to them. I mean, I wish I had an area where I could consistently do that, but
Yeah, same here.
that's not going to happen. I mean, it's not going to happen. I mean, it
Yep.
unless the coyotes God smile on me one night to kill more than 10 is that's humping. That's making 20 some sets. Like you're humping to kill double digits in my area. I feel.
Right. Yep. Yep. Exact same thing for me here.
And they're so pressured around me anymore. It seems like, I mean, nobody hardly, I've coyote hunted for 20 some years, 20 plus years, and it really, it was always kind of the middle of the winter, let's go set up on the hill or hunt by the moon with a shotgun or whatever. Then when thermals came around, it was, oh man, this is cool, and it seemed like your guys that were more serious coyote hunters were doing it. Well, now in the last couple years, there's a guy with a thermal behind almost in my area. It seems like around every tree.
Right.
Like
Yes.
you're out there at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm hearing gunshots. I mean, I'll hear 20 shots a night, and it's like that's somebody else out there coyote hunting. You never heard it before.
Right. Yep.
Like now,
Yep.
now it's like okay, so that's why I try not to beat myself up sometimes. If you get a dog, you might see one, 700 yards out that's kind of working across the field, and he's not paying attention or a care in the world to my call. At first, I'd beat myself up. Man, am I doing something? Am I doing something wrong? Well, now I kind of look at it as, he might have just got shot at an hour ago. I don't know.
Right. Correct.
Like, how many times has this coyote been called in? And everybody's got to start somewhere. No offense to anybody, but somebody that's not really paying attention, or kind of back to what we talked about at the beginning with how you do your wind. I see so many guys put the wind in your face, put the wind in your face. It's like, if you're hunting big, wide open country where you can really watch your six, I can see that. But in my area, there's so many ways they're coming downwind. Like 90% of coyotes are going to try to work downwind.
Yep.
And how many guys? Brandon was that way. He had uh, when he got in the night game, he just had IR, and I've never had IR, so I never really understood how it worked. Well, we were out, and I'd be like, "Oh man, there's a pair out there. They're coming over here." He's like, "Where? What? What? I can't." And then he's telling me, "Well, the corn stalks are messing it up." I mean, it's a cut cornfield, but they're 18. The stalks are 18 inches tall or whatever. And he's like, "Well, that's
Yep.
I can't really see. I can't really see." Or it's like, man, how many coyotes are you missing? Like,
Right.
he finally upgraded and got some thermals, and he went out here just 2 weeks ago or so, and he's sending me video after video. He's like, "Holy crap, they're everywhere!" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, you were just missing them. They were all, by the time they got through your window, you couldn't see them because they were 300 yards out there. And now they've gotten downwind of you, smelled you, they're out, and
Mhm.
they were there and gone, and you didn't even know it." So,
Right. And back, yeah, that's, whatever, 5 years ago when I got back into the night hunting game and I was running night vision, once I made that switch to thermal, I mean, that was one of my biggest thoughts was how many coyotes did I have come in at 300 yards and I just flat out didn't see with my night vision,
right,
so then, but then it's also one of them things too with the thermals. It's like when I used to play the whole wind in my face thing, it's like, well, how many snuck around me? And then there was just a tiny little draw or hill or something that they got behind that I couldn't see them, and then they poked their head up, smelt me, and were gone.
right.
So it's weird looking back on how I used to hunt to changing things up, and you start wondering about that things. It's like, well, how many coyotes did I have within shooting distance that I just plain didn't see? So
It's crazy. It really is. I know it was a huge learning curve. Bill and I talk about that all the time. I'm like, man, if we could have back a third of the coyotes that we've probably screwed up on, we
hmm
would have killed a lot of coyotes.
yes,
When we first,
right.
'cause, hunting them at night is just, it's a lot different than I ever thought young when I was growing up. Like they're doing a complete different thing at night, because they're basically going off their nose and nose only.
Correct.
That's how
Yep.
they're hunting. So when they hear that sound, whether it's a coyote distress or a rabbit distress or a howl, and they decide to come in, they're trying to smell what it is.
Right.
Yeah, some of them will just come ripping in. Like
hmm
everybody loves that, when you hit a pup fight or something, and then you look across there and here come two or three of them just ripping into you from 400 or 500 yards out. It don't get any better than that for adrenaline.
Right.
But how often does that actually happen? For me, that only happens a handful of times a year.
Right. Yep.
The
Correct.
rest of the time, they're just kind of just bounding their way, and they might run, but the closer they get, they're slowing down and they're hitting that low ground, and they're trying to use the best of my knowledge, they're trying to find them thermals. Like they want the wind in their advantage. Your thermals at night are generally always pushing low.
Yep.
That's what they're trying to find because I've had them just. I'm sure you have too. They just come in on a line and man, they'll get 200 yards out and you think your wind's good. Then all of a sudden you'll watch them just lock up.
hmm
Boom, they'll pick their head up or a lot of times they don't even stop. They'll just boom, they'll hit that, pew, veer right off and they're gone.
hmm
And I kind of always accredited that to where like, well, I've never ever thought of ever using thermals for coyote hunting. I mean, deer
hmm
hunting stuff, yeah, it's like, oh yeah, your thermals are rising in the morning, or if high pressure, blah blah blah. But coyote hunting, I believe there's a lot of similarities in that.
Right. Yep. I think there is too.
And they're just using their nose to smell it. And I mean, I know my call always stays in the back of my truck with the dead coyotes. I throw that call right on top of them.
hmm
My call reeks. by
yep.
by the end of the year, that thing smells terrible. But that's what they're coming to. I don't want it smelling like my wife on date night. Like
right.
if you're setting that call for them, giving I call it giving them the wind. You know, I like to give it to them. It seems like it works better for me. And if they can
Yep.
smell that, well, to me, their nose is unbelievably good. Makes them more at ease, I believe.
Right. Correct.
So yeah, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up here. Where can anybody listen to this? Where can they find you at?
Yeah. So the tournament page is PG Tournaments on Facebook. Believe I should be able to just to find it in the search. If not, feel free to message me and I can always add you to it. Or if you know anybody else that's in it, they can invite you. So, yeah, I got it. I have to approve everybody that's in it just so we don't get a bunch of scammers or whatever in it. So, but yeah, that's PG Tournaments on Facebook.
Alrighty, I'll try to get it the link description or whatever and put it down in the notes
Yeah,
for
perfect.
anybody. And yeah, it's just as simple as joining the group and finding when you post the tournament for the week, just commenting in there what you want. I mean, you want in. You just put your name and your team name and what pots you want in, right?
Yep, exactly. Yep.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
All righty, Josh. Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate your time and talking about your tournaments and little coyote hunting. It was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. And remember, go out and shoot straight.